Okay, let's talk about each one and the things that we can do or that you've seen in the studies and the work that you've done that help contribute to each of those. You said satisfaction, enjoyment, and then purpose and meaning.
Yeah. So the first one is enjoyment, and enjoyment means actually trying to be fully present in your life. The main reason that people don't enjoy their lives, they can have something chronically wrong, like, major depressive disorder or, health problems. Or one of the things that you talk about an awful lot on the show is the fact that people just aren't happy enough when back in the old days, when you were actually coaching people, when you had clients that you were training, they would come to you and they wouldn't be happy because they didn't feel good. And they're making these unforced errors about their life. They weren't enjoying their lives enough. So when people are morbidly obese, or where they're suffering from diabetes, or they're just too sedentary and have the comorbidities of sedentary behavior, then they're just not going to enjoy their life very much. So that's one of the things where you have particular expertise. So being fully present and ready to enjoy what life has to offer is number one. And so the one thing that I talk about is we go through an inventory of what's going on in your life. What are the things that really the barriers from holding you back to full enjoyment of your life? The second is satisfaction, and satisfaction is really, really hard. There's this one concept that we talk about an awful lot in my business called the hedonic treadmill. Hedonic means feelings. Mm-hmm. And the hedonic treadmill is basically the problem with satisfaction, where you run and you run and you run and you run, and you don't actually get any more satisfaction. So something good happens to you, you earn a bunch of money, and the next day you feel like you were before. You buy a $2 million house and you're actually not happier. You get that car you've always wanted, and as you're driving it off the lot, you're dreaming about the next the better model. That's the treadmill. And the reason is because your brain processes your emotions in a way that don't let you have very much satisfaction from worldly things. That's a process that's called homeostasis, in which you always return to an equilibrium, because your brain has to be ready for the next circumstance to keep you alive. You have to be ready all the time. And so if you're elated because something happened to you for weeks and weeks and weeks, you would not be prepared for what was about to hit you next. And back in the old days, you'd probably, I love that meal so much, and you're beaming about it, and you're not paying attention to saber-toothed tiger eats you and you don't pass on your genes. So there's an evolutionary reason why this would be the case, but it's super frustrating because you can't get satisfaction. So that's the satisfaction problem. And the answer to that is, this is, by the way, Mick Jagger sang that song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. That's the biggest Rolling Stones hit ever, not because it's a good song, because it isn't. It's because it speaks to the human condition. It's like, oh yeah, man, Mick says I can't get no satisfaction, and neither can I. Wow. So that's important. But there is a way to short circuit it. And the way to short circuit it is to remember that satisfaction is not a product of what you have. That's what we think. I'll be satisfied if all the stuff that I want, I have, right? The car, the job, the money, the success, the relationships, the fun, right? Satisfaction is actually what you have divided by what you want. It's your haves divided by your wants. Now, everybody remembers enough of their high school math that when you've got a fraction, you can lower the value by increasing the denominator. When the denominator gets bigger, the whole fraction falls. So your satisfaction falls when your wants go up. So one of the things that I counsel people on when I'm working with executives and I'm working with people is that I say, you feel dissatisfied even though you're rich. How come? It's because you haven't been managing your wants, and that denominator's been sprawling like the suburbs of San Jose. It's just like, it's going freaking crazy, and you haven't been paying attention to it. So what you need to do is get a reverse bucket list where you look at all that stuff in your, the bucket list is the dumbest idea for happiness ever. You should look in that bucket of all your wants that you've been worshiping and craving and desiring, and just pull out a handful of wants and say, I'm going to get rid of this one and that one and that one. I'm going to detach myself. If I get that stuff, great, but these aren't my wants anymore, to be free. The last one is purpose. And purpose is tricky because purpose, and this is the part of happiness that people don't usually understand. True happiness requires unhappiness. Why? Because purpose requires pain. To find meaning in your life, and pain is just incredibly sacred. If we miss out on pain, we miss out on post-traumatic growth, we miss out on experiences, we miss out on learning. And you and I have, in our personal lives, have talked about these experiences that have been painful for us, for you and for me. And when we talk about the things that we know would make us the men that we are, it's never like, oh, I went to this party when I was 18, it was so awesome. You don't even remember that. You remember the bad thing that happened to you, the painful thing, the lesson that you had to learn. And that's where you actually get your purpose and meaning in life. So the key thing that I ask people to do if they don't have enough purpose is they need to be more fully alive and take more risk. They need to fail more. They need to learn more. They need to to say they're sorry. They need to make amends more. They need to be fully engaged in their life and stop. Usually if you don't have purpose, it means you're running away from pain.